Hey there, welcome to Incorruptible Massachusetts. This is where we do our best to bring you into state politics. We talk about why things are so broken, what we can have here in Massachusetts if we fix it, and how you can get involved. And today is a big you can get involved moment. We want you to forward this podcast to your friends, this particular episode, because today we're talking about the incredible opportunity that we have this cycle to elect a ton of progressives to the State House and really change things up. So before we go on, I will introduce our inevitable co-host. I was trying to think of new adjectives. Our illustrious co-host. I will begin with Jordan Berg Powers.
I'm Jordan Berg Powers, as you see him. And I guess I'm inevitable.
Excuse me, and Jonathan Cohn.
Jonathan Cohn, he, him, his, been active in progressive electoral and kind of issue advocacy campaigns and based here in Boston.
Fabulous. I'm Anna Callahan, she, her, coming at you from Medford. And yeah, who wants to jump in and talk about redistricting and our incredible opportunity? Like this, every 10 years there's redistricting, and it means there's a ton of open seats. And maybe, Jonathan, do you want to jump in and talk about why we have open seats? Like what's happening to people who were in the State House?
So one thing that tends to happen, right? So last year, the State House, like following the census in a rather unfortunately rushed timeline because of like kind of bad behavior by the Trump administration. I tried to not use profanity, which was going to be my go-to word. They're doing that Massachusetts, kind of following the census, redrew legislative and congressional districts reflecting the new numbers, right? Because with the census, you then see how many people actually live in districts. Some of them are oversized, some of them are undersized. And because of the idea of one person, one vote, you need to kind of rejigger the maps so that people have about the same population. And when you do that, as it becomes obvious, you can't make a change in one place without making a change elsewhere. So although some districts will stay the same, many of them end up changing, and sometimes significantly, because of redistricting. What that also does is, because of that process of if people get new territory for the first time, or if they're kind of on retirement watch already, they can sometimes choose that as an ideal time to retire, whether it's because they don't want to deal with new constituents, or if it's because they see like, I'm gonna make your life easier with drawing this map, and I'm gonna bounce because I've been here for 30 years and should retire. And so that becomes a great opportunity where you both end up having, for open seats, where some of the incumbents use this as an opportunity to retire or take advantage of other opportunities, or you have incumbents who are facing significant new territory, such that like one of the issues that often gives incumbents an advantage is people are used to seeing their name on the ballot. And what happens in a number of districts after redistricting is a good share of their district may have never seen the incumbent's name on the ballot. Because with the new territory gained or territory lost, which creates an opportune time for somebody wanting to run for that seat, because you're not trying to like disabuse somebody of what they think about who's represented them, because the person who represented them doesn't anymore.
Yeah, and especially in a scenario where people don't know who their state rep or state senator is, after redistricting, they really won't know who the person is, right? Like they may have vaguely remember their state rep, they might have met them once, they might have filled in their name on a ballot, and so they're like, oh, I have like fondish, like, oh, I sort of know that person, voted for them. Whereas they're gonna be like, this name isn't even familiar, right? Like it's gonna be a totally new person in that atmosphere. The other piece I'll add to what Jonathan said is that, you know, we worked with the legislature, and this podcast is not one that says nice things about the legislature on a regular basis, but one thing they did well was, the House did a good job of creating opportunities for people of color to have a say on who will electing them. They're called opportunity districts. And basically it means that people of color are a majority of the district, and so therefore will be able to decide who it is that they're electing. And so there are a bunch of new ones, and so there are and there are some districts, to the credit of this house where they didn't put an incumbent in it. So one of the things is, yeah, you put an opportunity for people of color, but there's already a rep there, so you're not really giving them an opportunity to have a new say. Well, to the credit of the House, they actually created a bunch of places where there's no incumbent, which means that there's nobody currently representing those people, and so it's an opportunity for a fresh face, somebody new, hopefully, maybe a person of color, to come into the legislature. So they did this piece very well. It could, I think, whenever you do something, especially redistricting, which is the definition of zero sum, you can say, I would have done it this way and not that way. And I think I have some criticisms of the House and the Senate, how they find their final maps. But overall for the House, I think they did a good job. It's easily defendable, the things that they did. And they went out of their way to create some opportunities for people of color, which I think is important and laudable thing. So that's the other piece to this, is that there's some of those districts out there.
Yeah, and then, oh, sorry, Anna, go.
I was just gonna say, so we've got like opportunity districts, we've got new districts. We have districts that are like mostly new, where people will not recognize the incumbent state rep. And then we just have a lot of districts where people are stepping down. And I want to just throw in a little bit there that we do have some state reps who have been quite good, that we love. People who are, stepping away for a variety of reasons. Tammy Govea is running for lieutenant governor. There are a bunch of folks that are not returning. Maria Robinson is not returning. Nika Elugardo is running for another seat. So there are these folks that we have been relying on as progressives in the state house, who will not be there. So in addition to our great opportunities, we also have a need. And that need is that we really have got to dig deep. Share this podcast, send it to your friends, because we want to reach deep into a bunch of different communities, and get some more people to step up who are going to commit to really fighting for progressive values and fighting to have a democratically run state house, where we, the people of Massachusetts, can get the policies that we want, need, and deserve passed through that body.
Yeah, what I just quickly wanted to tag in was building up what Jordan noted, that like the House used some like opportunities of people retiring to specifically draw new opportunity districts, right? Like with Claire Cronin having been appointed to the US ambassador to Ireland, and her district included part of Brockton, allowed them to kind of redraw the map of Brockton to create an opportunity that could create the opportunity of a better opportunity of electing a Black candidate out of Brockton, which really should be having should have such representation. In the North Shore, when Republican Brad Hill was appointed to a new position, it's a bit unfortunate for the winner of the special election there at the end of last year, Representative Jamie Balsito, but they used that vacancy to say, okay, let's scramble the whole North Shore so that we can create a new district out of Lawrence.
Yep. And so there's a new district, Methuen Lawrence. They strengthened the already people of color districts. The districts similarly in Lowell, they redid it in such a way to strengthen the people of color district there, opportunity district. And so there's a bunch of places, Maria Robinson in Framingham, with her, sort of pending, hopefully, appointment. The Framingham, they redistricted in such a way to have an incumbent-free Framingham district. That's an opportunity for folks. So, there's a lot of places that there's going to be changes. And I think the thing that I want people to take away when thinking about this is there may be candidates already running. If you feel like they're not progressive enough, you should consider running, because, we're trying to assess, there's 160 of them. We don't know all of them, but you are experts in your place where you live. Your communities, you might know these people. And so if you feel like there's a missing progressive voice, maybe get to know them. If you don't know them, have a conversation on our values. And if they're not with us, then think about yourself running, because we're worried about sort of both where we're headed. And there's, this is an opportunity to make the state house better. And it's also an opportunity for more regressive folks to move the house back in the different direction. And so, whenever you have this, whenever you have upheaval, whenever you have sort of big changes, several districts changing, lots of opportunity, that's both opportunity for us, and also there's chances that we might, right? Like, you can go either direction. Either it's going to get better or it's not.
Yeah.
because it's a branch point effectively that it creates for you that to take advantage of.
Yeah. If you are,
Oh,
let me jump in and just say,
Yeah,
if you
go
are
ahead.
considering that you might be interested in running for office, and you could sit down with the people who are running, you could do all that stuff. You can also reach out to any of us and just ask, just say, hey, I might run. What do you think? Like, we will give you our total honest opinions. We want people who are willing to run. We want to pick your brains about who else you know that might be willing to run. If you know somebody you think would be good, like, reach out to us. Jonathan, go.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to note that in addition to the people who have already retired, there are even those who might leave, and thus making sure that people thinking about who would fill that seat. Like, for the thing that came to mind is that Tom Golden in Lowell is applying to be the city manager, the same way that their former state senator Eileen Donahue had left in the past. And so if he's gone, like, the time is, or if he might be gone, the time is now to think about who should run for that seat, because you need that runway if you're going to get somebody good.
Yeah. So I'm open. Can we just rattle off a bunch of cities that either have open districts, opportunity districts, or even return to somebody who's really could be replaced? We don't need to name names, but like, what are some cities that if you live in these cities, maybe think about people you know who might be good, consider running yourself. Let's rattle off some of those.
I guess I'd say, so the first for me is Lawrence. Lawrence is a place with a lot of changes. There's an opportunity district up there. There's a Senate district up there. There's a lot of places, there's a lot of change up in Salem, up in Lawrence. So there's opportunities for people to think about running and moving forward, and also knockdown effects, right? There's a bunch of city councilors who are planning to run for things. Some of the incumbents there are not the most progressive incumbents. I would say they're failing people of color in a lot of ways. So I would think about running for office in those places. Also, I just want to say really quickly, we're focused on the House because in my experience, it's extraordinarily difficult to jump from not being elected to a state Senate. There's 40 state senators, there are 160 state reps. Think about that math, right? It is a lot more voters, and it's hard to go from not being elected to elected in that way, that jump. But state rep, literally anyone could, as we've seen, anyone could run for state rep.
Especially in an open seat.
Especially in an open seat, but generally speaking also.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It reminds me of the thing that I like to tell people is that, like, most people in the state house aren't an expert on anything. So it's like, not like you need to be afraid of your legislators.
No. So I guess I'd say, like, Lawrence is a big place I would be thinking about. Similarly, there are Springfield and its suburbs. I'd say it not only are there changes, but also there's at least one rep there that should be thinking about we could probably be doing better than. And so I think, like, Springfield is also a place that's had some changes. There's some open seats with people running for other seats. There's reps stepping down in Hopkinton and Sherburne area, and there might be some good people there, but we don't know for sure. And Brockton, for sure. If you're thinking about Brockton, think about running for office, right? Like, there's a great opportunity for better representation. And then, Boston is also having a bunch of upheaval. And so if you're in Liz Miranda's seat and you're thinking about running for office, right? Liz Miranda's running for state Senate. So think about that. Think about running for that seat.
Absolutely. Great. Other notes before we go on to a little brainstorming? Other thoughts about the districts or about the cities that people could run in, or if they have friends who might be able to run in these cities?
I guess I would say, just generally speaking, if you listen to this podcast, you are probably frustrated with the pace of change. And so don't be scared to jump into this thing. Like, there's not, even if you run and are unsuccessful, like, we need to push these people to be better representational. We need them to know that people care about the fact that they're continually underperforming, right? Like, they're continually doing so little. I'm in awe of all of the awful things Texas and Florida are pinging off of each other to pass terribly, right? Like, how many of you are having whiplash every other week? They're attacking trans people. They're attacking the right of women to have reproductive choice over their lives. They're attacking voting rights. Think of how much they're producing. Think about how anxious you get when you see another bill in Florida or Texas come before you, right? They are moving forward with just bonkers things that are going to make people's lives worse. And here we are in Massachusetts, and we're celebrating one bill passing that they actually passed, that these terrible legislatures passed.
That should have passed like a dozen years ago or more.
And so that's I think so just think about that, have that anxiousness about about that, and then think about your rep, right? Is your rep, do they have that same fire to make progressive change that a Texas Republican has to make people's lives miserable? Do they have the same fire? Or are they giving you excuses for why they do so little? And telling you, look, there's a playground. Why are you complaining?
Go.
And remember that we convince people to have faith in democracy by passing policy, not by running to some Republican state and desperately trying to stop their terrible policies. We have to pass our policies. So we need to fight what I call on their 10-yard line, not on our 10-yard line. We can't wait until they're on our 10-yard line in places like Texas and Florida and Oklahoma and these other places, and then desperately try and stop them. We need to be pushing and passing our progressive policies to convince people that we actually have a democracy. So we need for people to step up in Massachusetts so we can make that happen.
The one thing that actually builds off that well that I was going to note is that many people in Massachusetts, as I like to say, would rather fix all 49 other states before they fix Massachusetts. And so people will spend all their time volunteering in different races out of state, but one way that you can actually meaningfully offer, help impact both our national delegation and other states is by passing good policy here in Massachusetts, because all good policy has to come from somewhere. It does not come out of it's not like a deus ex machina where somehow somebody comes down from the sky and gives them a policy idea to pass federally and other states. Is that when you're doing good work on the state level, good ideas can be contagious. So if you want to help spread so that those who are in power in other states or want to get in power in other states have ideas of what they can do, and that the national delegation has ideas of what they can do when they have the votes to do it, that it has to start somewhere.
Awesome. So you know how important this is. Share the podcast. Get all your friends in any of those cities, or really anywhere, to run. If you have any questions, if you're like, I want to run, but I'm not one of those cities, reach out. We will be happy to talk to you about where, might be a strategic place where you can run or other people can run. So, but before we end today, we are hoping to kind of galvanize people a little bit on running for state rep. And, there's about 7 weeks left before people have to file for office, before the window closes and you can't file for state rep anymore. Is that about accurate? Jordan, you're muted.
Yes, that's correct.
Great. 7 weeks left. And so we want people to really start thinking about it now. And we're going to brainstorm for a couple minutes on what's a good slogan we can use? What's some imagery we can use to get this point across. And we'd love to hear from you after the fact on any social media platform, or reach out to us by email or whatever you want. Post it in YouTube as a response, and let us know if you have ideas for how we can kind of galvanize people. One idea that I had was an SOS, save our state, right? And we can have we do little radio ads where it's like do 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 do, save our state, and get people to run for the state house. So, Jonathan, I know you had an idea
the one
that I loved.
Is using a marathon hook for next month about how the most important race this year could be yours.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Loving it. And along those lines, just do it, run for state rep. Just do it. Old slogan, right? So
you might have some problems using it, but yes.
We'll use the swoosh and everything.
Yeah. Somebody might call you. But
isn't even bad publicity good publicity?
Not always.
Not always. Was there a movie called Born to Run? What was Born to Run? Is that a song or maybe I'm so culturally
It is a song. It's a Springsteen song, which
there
is
you go.
Amazing that I know that because I'm Black. So well, we have dived out of my repertoire, but I do know that song.
Those are some songs we could rely on.
Yeah. I just want to say also that there's, there's a lot of places where people are they don't know that there's growing communities of color. And so like Milton, Randolph, right? There are places, Southbridge, Fitchburg. These are places with growing communities of color. So there's, again, opportunities for people that, while they may not be majority people of color in this districts always, although sometimes they are places where people can grow. So I'm not good at sloganeering, but I guess I'd say, like, think about your neck of the woods and is the state addressing your day-to-day concerns? Have you talked to your state rep? If not, why not? And if you feel like they're not representational, they're not doing a good job, then think about stepping in. And nothing is there's nothing wrong with a little bit of democracy.
It kind of like, does your representative represent you?
Yep. And if not, like, maybe think about you're the person to step into that fold.
A couple of years ago, I was doing the rounds, doing interviews for this podcast, actually, and the folks from Act on Mass, who during their interview, they were like, if your state rep has voted against transparency, just run against them, because like literally you can just run on transparency. And I kind of did that. And it was amazing how many people, that's all you have to say is like, with no way to know how they vote. And they're pissed, and they were like, okay, great, I'm gonna vote for you. So, don't hesitate to run.
Two things. One, that you could also use something like you lose 100% of the campaigns you don't run.
Yes.
I always like a good exercise. You put in little Michael Jordan quote.
The other thing, talking about transparency just reminded me of, if this might not be posted during this calendar week, but the day that we are recording this podcast happens to be in Sunshine Week. Sunshine Week, which is a national initiative spearheaded by the News Leaders Association to educate the public about the importance of open government and the dangers of excessive and unnecessary secrecy.
Yeah.
Massachusetts State House being one of the only state houses that exempts itself from sunshine laws is a good example of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We actually were talking to a candidate, and they were, Jordan, on your point, they were just talking about exactly that. They were saying there are opportunity districts that are supposedly like set aside for people of color to be able to run in. And does that mean that people of color can't be running in every other one of the 100 and whatever districts? Like, we should be running everywhere, right? You don't have to wait for an opportunity district.
I guess I would say if you're don't identify as a person of color, maybe think about finding a person for an opportunity district. But if you're not in an opportunity district, you don't have to wait for a person of color to run. You could just yourself run. Like, we just need people to run. So I think, I do want to say also that, like, it would be great for people of color to run in districts that are an opportunity district, because I think, our lived experiences, like all marginalized communities' lived experiences, brings a certain, lens that can be helpful. It's not a certainty, right? One of the many conversations I have with people is that just because a person is a person of color doesn't mean they're progressive, right? Like, we can't make that synonymous, but I do think that lived experience is helpful. And that being said, like, we also just need better representation. So, like, also, if you are listening to this and you live in a place where you think that there's an opportunity to have better representation, then you yourself should think about running.
And can I also mention that I think a lot of times there's this sense that the person who's sitting in that seat has some sort of right to be there, right? That's their job, and they should be protected simply because they've been there. And the 40,000+ people who live in your district deserve the best representative they can have. They don't deserve the person who happens to be there. They deserve the best. So if you're a little bit better than someone, run. Run for office.
Two things. One, it reminds me of the question that I was thinking of asking people voting for the cycle, of simply like, what is the problem to which that you view yourself as the solution to? As a way of approaching, like, why you versus any of the like 40,000 other people who happen to live in the district. And if you have a good answer for it, should run. The other thing, in terms of lines, to quote Cinderella in the Stephen Sondheim's musical Into the Woods, opportunity is not a lengthy visitor.
That's great.
That is a great one. Yeah.
We have a moment, my friends. We have a moment of opportunity right now for the next like 6 weeks to get people to run. Massachusetts has the lowest rate of challenging incumbents of any state house in the country. And now is our moment. We've got a bunch of open districts. We have a bunch of opportunity districts. We have a bunch of half new, half open. Half new is like half open. The incumbent is there, but they're not the incumbent for half the people there, right? And we need people to run. Last words.
I'll let you have the last word.
Do it, do it, do it, do it. Share this podcast with everybody that you know. We need people to run for office, and we will see you all next week.